Hey, happy Friday. It's Norm here on radiofreerhinecliff.org, and my show, Correct Me If I'm Norm. And my guest tonight is this guy named Joe Dalu. Did I pronounce your name right?
You did. That is Joe Dalu.
Dalu, who was going to bring a cocktail, and we were just talking before we started, because we agreed it'd be nice to like shake the cocktail in front of the microphone. But he brought a sample only, not for resale, sort of restaurant bottle of Vida, which is a nice brand of Mescal.
It's delicious.
So thanks for bringing the Mescal. And we got cups of ice courtesy of the Epicurean here. So it's kind of like shaking a cocktail. Joe, welcome. Thanks. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Norm. It's good to be here.
You're welcome. So tell me something. Tell me something I didn't know about you. Yeah, it was like, oh, fuck, the hard questions.
Dude, right? I'm from St. Louis.
Oh, right.
It's a long journey.
Webster Groves?
No, actually, Creve Coeur.
Creve Coeur.
For people that know St. Louis.
And you, did you graduate high school there?
I did, and I went to University of Kansas.
Uh-huh.
Lived in Aspen briefly for about 2 years.
And what were you doing in Aspen?
I was working in the culinary field. I pretty much graduated business school and went right out there.
Oh, that's nice. It's a nice background for running a restaurant, business school.
Definitely. That's why one of the reasons I chose it, just to give me a general feel and knowledge of the business.
Because did you know going into college that you wanted to be a restaurateur?
I wanted to drop out my sophomore year and go to culinary school.
And where would you have gone?
I went up to the CIA. That's where I would have went. That's like the best school.
So you're in high school. You're cooking a bunch, I'm guessing. You liked cooking. You thought maybe you wanted a career as a chef or a restaurateur or something.
Yes, as I kind of understood my truth, what I wanted to do early. So I wanted to own a restaurant by the time I was 29. And I really started getting serious when I was 26.
And so at what age did you first know your truth?
I think when in 5th grade, I did a demonstrative class where I made an omelet in class and got an A, and just, there was that instant gratification, cooking for my family.
The instant gratification of people being like, this is a fucking great omelet.
Delicious, yeah. You kind of accomplish a task, and then it kind of nourishes your soul as, you watch people enjoy it. It's, one of those things that, it's how chefs love, it's like through the food.
Right.
I did like a huge catering for my mom for like all these doctor friends of theirs.
So back to 5th grade, was it like show and tell or something?
Yeah, it was like a demonstration class where I had to come in and demonstrate a task, and I brought in a burner and made a ham and cheese omelet for the teacher. And
yeah, ham and cheese, jambon fromage.
Of course,
were you
classic.
cooking French back then?
Not still.
And what did other people do? What did other people demonstrate?
Oh, I don't know. This was 5th grade.
I don't remember any demonstration classes. I remember show and tell.
Yeah?
I'm like, hey, yeah, look, I got a new Lego set.
I don't know. It was one of those, it must have fit in the formula of the class.
So that's 5th grade, but you showed up and decided you knew you were going to make something for the class.
Yeah.
I guess you made a bunch of, or a big omelet, or a couple of things, and people liked it and loved it. But you must have been cooking before that even.
I mean, I was kind of one of your latchkey kids. Both of my parents worked. So my brother and I kind of took care of ourselves, and the adaptation, just
big brother,
through
little
cooking.
brother?
Big brother.
Did he like cooking too?
Not so much then, but he does now.
Right. So you guys would get home from school, and you'd be hungry, and you'd make him some grilled cheese sandwiches or whatever.
Yeah, we'd cook for ourselves, and my mother did a lot of casseroles. It was kind of she was Mennonite, so it was like this really wild. My mom was like this Mennonite from Ohio. My dad's this Palestinian doctor who came from Jerusalem and fought his way out of got a scholarship to Egypt, to American University. And how did they meet? Yeah, that's a great question.
Now I got a gajillion questions. You said he bought his way out?
No, he kind of studied and got scholarship. He got one of a handful of scholarships to study medicine.
Okay.
Outside of, Palestine, when he grew up during the war and during the occupation and,
right.
The whole.
So he went to Israel. He started his studies.
No, he was born in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Palestinian.
But where did he?
He studied in Egypt.
Oh, in Egypt.
And then he got he became a doctor and then actually went to Aramco, American Arab Oil Company. And my mom was a nurse because Mennonites are very pacifist, and that's common occupation for a lot of Mennonites is
What
the medicine field. And so she was as adventurous as my father, and she got a job in Aramco and flew first class over to Saudi Arabia.
So he became a doctor and then went to work for this big multinational oil company.
That's right. My mom did the same as a nurse, and then they met there. You know, it was wild. You know, when you first got there, my mom was given a still. Speaking of
A still?
speaking of that,
Well, you want to break into your cocktail
that yet?
already?
so so she actually, they give you a still and directions because of course it was a dry country back in the 50s, especially,
Right,
you know,
right.
60s. So they taught them how to, you know, brew their own liquor, and you know, it was just kind of a big work thing where it was like a lot of parties and a lot of money to be made.
That's hilarious. And did either of them distill their own spirits when you were growing up?
Absolutely. You know,
Really?
we always had. I mean, those
You had the
we
ri-
had cream de mint, and we'd have like
And they
you know,
would make-
apricot brandy, and
But they would make the ethanol. They would make
when we
the
first
liquor
got
part.
back, you know, it was kind of, I don't know if they were making it actually, but they were probably just getting some clear, Everclear liquor and just
When-
kind of
I see.
stewing their own recipes.
I see.
Not necessarily, you know, going through the whole process.
When we first got back, you said, so you lived over there?
I was born in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia.
In where?
In Dhahran,
Okay.
in Riyadh.
Okay, in
They're-
Riyadh.
And, you know, so, yeah. And so then we emigrated back to the States when I was 2.5. And like St. Louis was the first city to take us, you know. I almost grew up in Detroit, you know, that was a big.
What does that mean, first city to take you?
Well, you know, when you immigrate, you have to have like
A sponsor? kind of
a
thing?
sponsored town. Yeah, a sponsored city. Someone has to like.
And so the Mennonites, I'm guessing, were the connection? They were the sponsors? Or
No, not necessarily. You know, I was born under American birth certificate.
Okay.
You know, it was just my dad. You know, my dad came over and had to emigrate. You know.
Right. So who ended up sponsoring the family?
Oh, I don't know sponsoring. I mean, I think just the first city that takes you. You know, a
Okay.
lot of times when you know, you hear about cities have to bring in immigrants and you know like refugees.
Right.
But you know, my dad was a physician. He was a valued person addition,
Right.
especially back in there. They were looking for people to, you know, with skills and
So
and
what
talents.
What year is this?
This is 72. This is 73, 72.
Wow. So your dad's native tongue would be Arabic.
Yes.
And your mom's native tongue was Ohio.
Yeah.
Which is the same as mine. I speak Ohio fluently.
Yes, you do.
And do you speak any Arabic?
I speak a little bit. You know, just like, hello, how are you? Some dirty words.
Some dirty words. Well, we
know.
can use dirty words here.
Can we? Yeah,
on the
I don't
radio.
know. So
knock yourself out. And do you? Did you, when you guys were kids, did you go back to Palestine, back to your pop's?
no, we had
home?
never gone. My dad, a lot of times, you know, he wanted to go back, but I think it was just too painful because
Right.
he would have been in a different situation. You know, he'd have been a stranger in his, you know,
Right.
in his own land, you know, kind of. So he never really went back, you know,
Right.
and like 3 years ago, my dad passed away 4 years ago, actually. My mom died 20 years ago, but my dad had always, you know, was going to tell me and take me back. So 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to go to Jordan.
I remember that.
And so I went back to Jordan. That was the reason, you know, it was kind of that the year later after my dad passing and
Back to
you know.
Jordan, but that's not Palestine.
No, it's not.
Nearby.
And I didn't go,
But you
you
said
know, but
back-
I think next time.
You said back to Jordan,
that
like-
cradle, I mean, that area
Gotcha.
right there. I
Okay.
mean, they're neighboring countries.
Yeah.
So just to be back in the Middle East, you know,
Right.
to reconnect a lot of things that felt missing in my life, you know, like, because, you know, I mean, it's
Like that whole side of the
a couple
family
Arab
heritage.
kids growing up. Yeah, I mean, I went to a Jewish preschool. I went to, you know, you know, public school, and I went to Catholic all boys school for 7 years, and then I went back to Kansas. You know, it was like, so it was an experience, just, you know, but it was like I felt, you know, a little distant from
Sure.
all of me.
And the Mennonite side, the Ohio side, did you visit your mom's family in Ohio, wherever that might
We
be?
did.
Where was that in Ohio?
That was in Wasion.
Wasion.
Yeah,
No idea.
yeah, just some small town. And there, I mean, that was great memories, you know, to have a Mennonite grandmother was quite a departure too, you know. It was,
Right. Oh,
it showed a lot of diversity, you know, and it really, I was able to see a lot of different cultures.
And what do the Mennonites believe?
Mennonites are like Amish, you know, they're like the Amish. They're like, you know, definitely, there's a lot of different Orthodox to very
Sure.
open. I mean, I think it's a great religion in that, you know, it's self-sufficient. It's, you know, has a lot of that Amish type of sustained, you know, they take care of themselves, and,
Right.
you know, but it was odd too, you know, it was good time, you know, I remember.
It must have been fun to go to this tiny town in Ohio from St. Louis, which is a pretty big town.
Yes.
Right? To go to, I'm guessing it was sort of rural, farmish kind of place.
It was. I mean, we grew up and we had a farm outside of St. Louis too. So we
Oh, you did?
yeah. So my dad loved farming. So we spent a lot of weekends out at the farm, and you know that's why I choose rural areas to live in. That's, you know, I'm not a city guy at all.
Right. And do you farm now? Is any of that
I
land
did a little bit. I planted garlic this year and I harvested about 50 pounds of garlic.
Uh-huh.
But with the labor shortage, I wasn't able to spend as much time in my garden as I wanted to this year. But
Right.
I had ideas and dreams of, you know, more of sustainable. But as my friend Ken Migliarelli once said, he goes, you know, leave the cooking to the chefs and leave the growing to the farmers.
Yeah, I guess. And you get a lot of, you source a lot of your food locally as much as possible?
I do. I use John the Farmer right south of town.
John
on the
Farmer.
right next to where the project, you know, right next to Matchbox.
Uh-huh.
There's a small
just across the
Son
street.
of B Sharp, farm.
Just south of
Yeah,
Matchbox,
John
same side of the
does
street.
great stuff, you know.
Oh, wow.
He grows organically,
Uh-huh.
and his produce is beautiful. So we've been trying to get a connection between that. 'Cause we're so close,
Right.
you know, that we can just do, you know, call him and have him pick the lettuce and just go and get it.
Yeah, hell, he could bike it up to you.
I'm telling
that
you, it's so close. It just makes sense.
That's great. And what about the other stuff? I mean, you run a bistro, which is sort of a French kind of place, which is meat heavy and traditionally sauce heavy. Would you get the meats locally as well?
Yeah, you know, we try to source. We try to source what we can. You know, we get a lot of things out of the city, a lot of things out of Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Dutch, and local rabbits, local food. You know, in general.
Right. And you do. So you're the executive chef, or what do you call it? I mean, there's different titles.
Yeah, chef owner. The delineations kind of aren't as specified with a smaller kitchen.
Right.
It doesn't have the formality of the larger French kitchen to, you know, decipher the different levels. It kind of blends a little, you know. It's a little more, not to take the farmer thing, but it's like, you know, wearing a lot of hats.
Right, right. So at any given point in time, listen, it's Friday night now, how many people are in the kitchen working, making food?
How many people in the kitchen?
Yeah.
5 to 6.
Including downstairs, you know.
Yeah, about
maybe
5 to 6.
5 to 6. That's not a lot.
No.
So those people are sprinting from like right about now until right about 11. When
We
you
work
close.
hard, yes. No, yeah, about we come in at noon,
You guys.
and then we cook all day long, and then it's like 3 jobs. We set it up,
Right,
we produce the food, and then we break it down.
right.
I mean, I think of cooks like carpenters. You know, if there's 5 carpenters working on a house, those guys are going to get a lot done. You know, and the same thing with cooks.
Right.
You know, they're organized and, you know, they're forward thinking. They don't mind manual labor. So
Right.
5
And
cooks can get a
running
lot
around
done.
and
Yeah, that's right.
bumping into each other. I'm
Well,
guessing.
we tend to call it the dance.
You call it the
I'm
dance.
trying not to step on each other's
Well,
toes.
and you've got somebody there, some kid who's your garde manger. What's a garde manger?
Garmager is he's in charge of, you know, he can a range of things, but he's basically hot and cold appetizers.
Okay.
To simplify it, he does the, you know, he could do desserts, he could do the amuse, but he's doing your appetizers.
Amuse, the
salad
amuse bouche thing.
Yes, but we pick some things up off the hotline too, depending on what it is.
Right.
But yeah,
And that kid, your garde manger, goes by the name of Ian O'Connor.
Ian O'Connor.
And I just want to give a
awesome.
shout out to my boy Ian,
Awesome.
who's such
I
a
mean,
great kid. And
he's such a rock star.
Good friend of my boy Moss, and probably friends with your son Henry. I'm
Absolutely,
guessing.
the whole clan. I knew he'd do great.
I love that kid Henry, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Great kid.
Great guy.
If he's listening, hello, Henry.
Yeah, he should be studying for English.
Yeah, study for English. Or hire me. I'll write the paper for you for $10. Yeah. So fifth grade, you make this thing, and you at that point, people were like, "Oh man, that's the best omelet I ever had. That's amazing," and you're hooked.
Yeah, I'm hooked. Well, my dad was a great chef, and my dad was a great cook. I mean, growing up cooking Arabic food, and everything, grilled steaks and pizzas, and he just loved to cook. And my mom was an excellent cook also. She baked a lot, so we had a farm growing up. We still have today. It's 45 years it's been in our family.
Oh, that's great. And
And we had, Hereford cows. We had, big garden.
right.
We were canning vegetables and making jams.
That's
I
great.
mean, that's the Mennonite side. My mom had a lot of knowledge on pickling.
And you say the farm's still in the family. Which family member is?
My brother and I own it now. So my parents passed. So we share the farm.
Is your brother working it? Is anybody working it?
No, we lease it out to a local farmer.
Gotcha.
Who raises about 30-something head of cattle on it.
Huh.
He takes care of it, watches the house.
And so you get a tiny amount of rent, I'm guessing, but also
Tiny.
Yeah, tiny, but also probably some nice cuts of meat. And
Yeah, nice cuts of
good
meat
veggies.
and just, I don't know. We're in the consideration of, yeah, it's hard to get out there to visit it.
Right.
So, but, it's a cherished piece of land. It's
It's
beautiful.
a tough business being a farmer. It's just
It's tough.
tough. Honestly, almost as tough as like running a restaurant. I love to cook, and people said to me through the years, "Oh, you should have a restaurant." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Have you not paid attention to that? I mean, it's not really a job. It's a whole lifestyle. It seems."
It definitely is. I mean, I love it still as much, which is, I'm actually cooking food for my son's a barbecue for my son's birthday tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
My youngest he turned 8 yesterday, but we're celebrating his birthday tomorrow, and I'm doing
And what do
2
you?
pork butts and 4 slabs of rib, deviled eggs.
And how are you cooking the pork butts? One of my
slow and
specialties.
low, man.
Slow and low.
Oh,
But
it's
are
gonna
you
be-
smoking them?
I'm smoking them on 2 different grills.
You have a smoker.
I have a big green egg for the pork butts.
Okay.
Because it just works so well to hold that
And
temperature.
what kind of wood are you using to smoke them?
I'm using cherry on these, so I'll start it in some charcoal.
Right.
The big green egg does not do well with wood,
Okay.
so it has to be a charcoal with chips. But then I have an offset, like more of your
Right.
traditional offset smoker,
Right.
and I'll do the ribs in those, and then I'll burn wood in that.
Man, what time can I show up?
delicious.
What kind of gift should I bring your kid? My mouth's watering already.
Yeah, I'm gonna barbecue all night because the party's tomorrow in the morning. So.
Oh man, this is one of my personally favorite things to do is to smoke a pig butt in the backyard. I smoke it over hickory, so the smell is enormous and it smells so good all day long.
It's just that's what we should go over there now afterwards when we leave.
Yeah, sure. I'll burn some hickory chips. I don't have a pig butt. Where'd you buy the pig butts?
This was a pig we had gotten. So, I had saved up some of the ribs, and then we just got we got a pig. So I took the ribs and the pork butts, and then we saved the prime parts for like the loin for on the menu and for the schnitzel.
The schnitzel.
The schnitzel, always a crowd pleaser.
Hilarious. Yeah, the savant of schnitzel. I wrote this morning in the thing. I don't know. It was early in the morning. But yeah, that's always on your menu. And somebody said, "Well, that's a German thing. You sure you got this right? Because isn't that a French restaurant?" And I said, "Yeah, it's always on the menu somehow." How did schnitzel get on your menu?
It's a misnomer. It's actually it was a French tradition dish for like paying homage to a German king. I believe I'm getting this right.
Okay.
Because you're up in the you have Alsace, which is the German French region.
Yeah.
I mean, that's saying there's such border wars and movement over the years that
Yeah.
a lot of the food in France is shared by the borders, and they just vary so much. You got Alsace up there where it's debatable where the schnitzel came from. I believe it is French, but you get down by Nice and down by it's Italy, and it's like polenta,
Right.
ratatouille and much more Italian feel.
And they-
Normandy is the only region that has no wine.
Right.
That's
They've got
that's
Calvados.
they got Calvados. Well, Normandy does,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and they've got cheese. They've
Yeah.
got lots of nice
No, Normandy does.
Camembert up there in Normandy.
south of Normandy.
What's south of Normandy?
Yeah,
Paris is south.
no,
of
Brittany. Brittany's the only region that does not have wine.
I see.
And that it's just expressive of the different ethnicities that are around there. The
Right.
Basque region down in Languedoc.
So have you spent much time in France?
I have. I have an uncle that lives there. Again, when the whole Palestinian thing went down, all our family just like had a deal. We went everywhere.
Right.
My uncle ended up in France. We ended up in the States.
Right.
And family ended up in Lebanon. A lot of family ended up in Jordan. When I went back to Jordan to visit, a lot of Abu Dalus. That's my original name is Abu Dalu, but we shortened it, like a lot of other people do in your name, Dalu.
Okay.
So it was originally Abu Dalu, but
Abu Dalu.
we had dinner with 83 family members, and that was just a small bit of our family.
Yes.
We
That's
rented out a whole restaurant.
That must be so nice to go to this place. And had you
It
been
was
to Jordan
incredible.
before?
No, I had never been back to the States. I've never been back to the Middle East. That was my first time.
This was
So
like 4 years ago. You went to Jordan.
several uncles, several aunts, my cousins, kind of like,
And they're all like, here.
we
comes,
all came back.
Here comes the big shot chef
Wow.
from the U.S. We'll show him, right? Because cooks and chefs are like the biggest show offs. So I'm sure they tried it out all the best foods, and you ate like a king.
I did eat like a king. They were showing it off, and it was delicious. It was. I really wanted to, go on a culinary journey too. And see all the foods I could,
Yeah.
and so it was nice. I went for 2 weeks. My
Amazing.
blessed wife let me go.
God bless her.
I wanted her to come too, but it was right during when school started.
Right.
So she had dedication to the kids.
Right.
So
Hats off, Jen.
that's Jen.
Special shout
She's
out
awesome.
for letting that happen.
Yeah.
So
Rock.
you sampled a whole bunch of foods. What foods did you have there that you're like, oh God, what is this? That really blew your mind.
They had this traditional dish where they take milk. I believe it's camel's milk, and they dry it, ferment it in the sun, and it's like these. It's like a little ball of like
Of fermented
camel's milk or something, and they
sounds
use it to.
so gross.
And they stew lamb in it. And so it's like this, and you sit down. It's like a traditional place where you eat it. Like there's restaurants that are known for this,
And
and,
what's it-
everyone sits around, smoking the hubbly bubbly, and
a hubbly bubble.
drinking
which is a
tea, which
hookah?
is the hookah, man.
And they smoke tobacco mostly in the hookah, or
Everybody smokes tobacco everywhere.
Right.
It's insane.
right?
I'm just sitting
But in the hookah, there's
two guys in a car, and they'll
tobacco.
just light cigarettes up.
Right. 5 guys in the car.
Five
They all
dudes, they're
smoking
all
cigarettes
like,
with the
"What?"
windows up.
Oh.
Yeah, it's crazy. All over
Yeah,
the
they
world.
smoked the tobacco, and it was nice. It was like this braised lamb, and it really is that people eating with their hands, and it was an experience. It was
Right.
delicious,
And so, do you have any of these dishes on the menu of Le Petit Bistro?
I do cook Arabic food. I think in the beginning I cooked a lot more Arabic food, and I had a lot of the New Yorkers. They always love this stuffed eggplant dish. It's like a Japanese eggplant, where it's kind of par fried in olive oil, and then you open it up like a pouch, and you fill it up with meat and pine nuts and allspice, and then you bake it in tomato sauce. It's just like it's super simple.
My
It's like
mouth just started watering.
oh, it's delicious.
That's
served with simple rice. A lot of the dishes were really simple, deceivingly simple, but
Right.
really complex in flavors. When
Oh, that sounds gorgeous. And I don't really even like eggplant, but that thing still sounds spectacular.
that Japanese eggplant's so tender. It's the one to eat if you don't like eggplant.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got a gajillion questions, but also I'm getting thirsty here for your cocktail. I don't know if people could hear the air quotes. Oh, and Joe made a nice gesture. So tell us about this cocktail you brought, Joe.
Yeah, man. Well, it's simple. This is the time of year. This is the Mexican Scotch. Is the Mescal.
Uh-huh.
So smoky and apropos for this time of year.
And so, what do you know about
You've had
this,
Mescal,
this
man.
brand?
Come on. This is just one of my favorites. I don't, I can't tell you the history on it, but I've been drinking it for years.
Don't forget Matt. Also, how come you got more than I did? Because you're not a pain in the ass.
Oh, yours for
Let's
later.
say. Well, cheers, Joe.
Cheers,
Thanks for
gentlemen.
coming on. Thanks for
Hey.
bringing the cocktail.
Thanks for taking.
And I love Mescal. Now,
is a
Mescal,
great one,
kind of
too.
like 10, 15 years ago, all of a sudden, Mescal really hit, and everybody was drinking Mescal. Any insight into how that happens?
Well, popularity, the in thing. Jordache jeans, the whole thing.
Yeah, there
This
you go.
one's really good. Roast pineapple. Get a lot of fruit on the nose. Not a lot of smoke, but just enough to keep that balance.
But enough smoke. And Mezcal is a kind of
Nice
tequila?
finish.
Or tequila is a kind of Mezcal?
Yes.
Yeah, no leading the witness, Matt.
Hey, Matt can at us. He's in there.
Matt knows everything about almost everything, but a lot about liquors. So this
That's
is
the jack of all trade quote. They never get the whole quote. It's actually a positive expression.
what's the jack
Master
of
of none, jack of all trades, master of none.
yeah.
But there's a second part of that.
Is there? There's a second stanza.
I forget what it is, but it says it's a better thing to be a jack of all trades.
Well, if variety is the spice of life, then that's a good thing to dabble in a lot of different things, to enjoy creating in a lot of different things.
Yeah, have the ability to do a lot of different tasks.
Yeah. So when you were a kid, you said both parents cooked. Were there dishes that mom cooked or dad cooked that you just loved, that thinking about now just makes your mouth water?
Yes.
Dishes of your youth, what were they?
My mom made an insane meatloaf. And she would make the best cookies. These little rum balls that were just to die for.
And do you have the meatloaf recipe?
I do. I don't think that's a dish that just has a sense and feel to it.
Right.
And a lot of those just, writing them down just doesn't translate them as well.
Have you tried to replicate your mom's meatloaf?
Yes, of course. I think everybody
And
does.
served it to your brother?
No.
As the ultimate taste tester? Where he'd be like, yeah, no, Joe. Close, but...
I'll have to make meat. My brother's actually coming for Thanksgiving this year with his family, so we're super, super excited.
That's great.
Yeah.
So make the meatloaf. I'm guessing it was made with hamburger.
I think we're going to do pizzas on the pizza oven. And then he's not staying for long.
Well, come on. And where does he live?
So he lives in Charleston, South Carolina,
Okay.
which is a great food town.
Right.
I'm so happy he lives there.
Yeah.
Go and visit.
So mom's meatloaf. What about dad's dishes?
Dad, the list is long. His kofta was delicious. We had a farm, so we had beef all the time. So we'd make some badass steaks all the time.
Well, what's
big thick cuts.
What's kofta?
Kofta's a dish it's basically a ground meat kebab that's spread on a thicker skewer, like a wider blade skewer to hold it. And that's in a lot of different regions, and then the spices will translate it.
Right.
The subtleties of just different spice combinations will transcend it. But Turkey has a very famous one through the Middle East.
Very famous spice combination.
Yeah,
Okay.
I forget what it is, but
And what are some of the spices used over there for those dishes that just aren't used here at all?
sumac is the one that's used a lot.
Okay.
That people don't. I mean, there has been a resurgence with the cookbook Jerusalem. A lot of people got a really sense and feel of Arabic cooking, and I think that did a lot. I mean, Arabic cooking is pretty hot right now. A lot of more recognition in higher end chefs,
Right.
and a lot of the Israeli chefs bringing some game to the United States.
Right.
But
Huh. And apart from your restaurant, which is so good, what are the other local restaurants, just a couple of them, that you really like? Say you got a date night with Jan, you got babysitter all lined up, and you're going to go out and get something to eat. Or maybe New York City. Let's go to New York City.
no, I go
So,
here. Bia's. I think Rich is doing great things at Bia. We had dinner there the other night with a friend of mine, and we had simple dishes, and it was just solid. The cocktails are great.
Right.
It's small enough where they can take the time
Yeah.
really to perfect their trade.
Yeah, I've never been to Bia, but I was at Elephant years ago.
A lot of the same feel,
Holy crap!
more refined dishes.
Food was amazing,
Yeah, he's still doing it.
ridiculously good. Huh? That's good. And do you go down to the city much and eat down there?
I don't. I got 3 kids. I got a bit. We got an Airbnb. I got we got the restaurant and
Where's the Airbnb?
out on Salisbury Turnpike. It was like our first house.
Okay.
I lived out at the fork in the road on one of Steve Schreiber's places for like
Oh,
5
yeah?
years. Yeah, and Steve's a trip.
Yeah, I know Steve.
Good friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a good man.
Yeah, he's.
Those are good years.
Yeah, that's good. And,
And then we bought a house actually at a garage sale on Salisbury Turnpike
wait,
for like $95K.
you bought a house? At
We bought a
garage
house.
sale?
Yeah, and like she held paper, and it was like our first
That's amazing.
financial purchase. Even when we were students, that was like a huge thing.
And where were you students? This is you and Jen.
That's Jen and I. Yeah, we were there, and we lived in Salisbury for about 10 years.
But where were you both? Were you both at the CIA at that point?
No, Jen was working in the city.
Okay.
She worked at the bank at the Rhinebeck Savings Bank for about a minute and said, I got to get out of here. I'm going to go. And so she went down to the city and was working. She worked a couple non-for-profit jobs, and then she worked for Christie's Auction House
Nice.
and Human Resources for like 6 years. And she was tearing it up.
I could see her being great at HR.
Yes. And so she was doing the whole train into the city thing. That was kind of like the cult thing.
Again, bless her. That's a tough road to hoe, taking the train to the
It
city
was
from
like
here.
leave at night, leave when it's dark, get back when it's dark.
Right.
But she's got a lot of drive, and so I was going to the culinary school at that point, and then I went to I got an externship at Old Chatham Sheepherding Company Inn with Melissa Kelly.
Old Chatham what?
Sheepherding Company Inn.
Okay.
They make the cheeses. Their cheeses that it's a square camembert with a green circle with the black sheep in it.
Uh-huh.
That's kind of their logo.
Right.
But it used to be a Relais and Chateau property with
Okay. Which is
a James. We won the James Beard Award.
which is a high echelon property.
High echelon
Relais
property.
Chateau. It's
One of the fastest
chain.
properties ever to achieve Relais and Chateau status.
Wow. So you went from the CIA to this place in Chatham, and you had an
Chatham, New York.
externship. So you actually, I guess, you were still at the CIA and sort of externing at this place, or
Yes, and then I continued to work there after because you go to externship in the middle.
and what? And so
the CIA,
you're
and
so
then-
you're bottom of the totem pole in the kitchen. I'm guessing.
Yeah, in the basement scrubbing muscles, with a business degree, and
I think I know a kid who's in your basement scrubbing. muscles
it's like
probably
that's
right
how
now.
it is. I mean, it didn't. I needed to learn my knife skills. I needed to get a sense of the kitchen.
And how did you learn those? Were there classes where you learned knife skills, or did the chef look over your shoulder and say, "No, do it like this"?
No knife skills. Your basic cooking classes.
Okay.
And I was 26 at this point when I went into the CIA.
Right.
So I'd already graduated business school. I'd already worked in the field. I was kind of like it was kind of my postgraduate. It was kind of my
Right.
my quote unquote master's. I don't know.
Your master's degree.
No.
In
Yeah.
the field. And how long were you in Chatham?
I was in Chatham almost 2 years.
Okay.
It was a 43-minute commute,
Oof.
and so but it was the best place in the world. It
43-minute
was.
commute to a 14-hour job or something.
That's right. And then I'd come home and go to the culinary for the morning, and then I'd get up the next morning. I'd go to the CIA and go to school all day, come home, and then drive 43 minutes up to the Old Chatham.
Right.
Work all night, then come back in the.
And was the CIA
So it was a grind.
Was the CIA a great experience?
Yes.
And what were the best things about going there?
I was psyched because I think things have changed a little bit. I think everything progresses. I like I wanted a classic culinary school education. I wanted that quarter round of beef.
Right.
I wanted that whole hanging beef. I wanted to see that broken down. I wanted to do classic pâtés and do garmager and work, do that old school stuff. And so I was completely pumped. I mean, their library is by far the best in the United States.
Right.
And with culinary volumes and rare books and just the expansiveness. They have a video section where they do a calf slaughter, a pig slaughter,
Right.
sheep slaughter. I mean, that's invaluable information.
And do they?
That could put, that a lot of that boxed beef stuff and all that. I wanted to see how it was happening,
And
kind of an old school way, and the CIA still provided that.
And did they also? I mean, you talk about slaughter. Did they also educate you in like kosher or halal kinds of slaughter?
I mean, they do edge on that. All the German chefs, all the German butchers
Right.
that were working there, they were all coming. They were all coming out of the halal, out of the kosher. Like a lot of them worked for the hot dog places, and
Right.
a lot of these kosher establishments.
Uh-huh.
The Jewish culture asks the most of their food. They really have.
Right.
They have high standards. So.
So German butchers, is there some tradition that I'm not aware of that
They're just great.
in the
These
butcher
guys-
world, the Germans are leading the pack?
I mean, at the CIA at the time I went there, they were,
Because it makes me think now of the knife brands like Wusthof
Wusthof.
and Meichli or Heichli or whatever, like all these German name knives.
I mean,
I'm just
the
wondering.
image just kind of fits the, you can kind of get a sense that, sturdy and, they were just,
Careful, we can't lose our one
Yeah.
German
Yeah.
listener with German stereotypes.
my
of
mom was German
sturdiness.
Mennonite. So, I mean, that's a lot of the Mennonites were German, a little Swiss, some said they were Russian because they were pushed out of Russia and went to Germany, and then from Germany.
Right. Okay, so where'd you go after Chatham?
My mom had was sick, and so I had to take a leave of absence from Old Chatham. And like right at that point, it was starting to implode anyways, the restaurant itself. So I was had just given my notice to go back to St. Louis to be with my mother. And Melissa, and I was supposed to go in like on Thursday to train the new guy on butchering, because I'd butcher like I'd do all day on Thursdays butchering. And she called me and said, "Joe, don't bother coming in. The restaurant's closed." So, that was it, and it was just ended. It was Tom and Nancy Clark. They had tons of money. They didn't care, and it just kind of...
Still sad.
The cheese was still there, but the Relais and Chateau, the restaurant, all no mas. And Melissa ended up going up to not Portland. She's going to kill me.
She's the executive chef, Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa was a rock star. She ended up getting her second James Beard Award up in Maine, but that was not my path. I stayed here. Jen was working in the city. We were back in St. Louis anyways, caring with my mother, and so she ended up passing away. So, which was extremely sad point.
Your mom.
My mom. So I was like out of my job.
Right.
I'm in St. Louis. And so Steve Schreiber was a doll. He ended up, letting us, kind of like fade away and kept our place, and so. But I came back and I actually worked on a Christie's auction house down in White Plains, and that was kind of a fresh point. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was working for like the wine department in their warehouse down in White Plains. And so I come back and I'm commuting down to White Plains.
Ugh.
Downtown, working at a warehouse. It was like a temperature controlled warehouse.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. Met a lot of cool people.
And did you specialize in any particular kind of wine, or?
No, I was just, it was really a lackey job. I would just sit there and check the bottle heights. I'd open these cases up. I'd evaluate the wine. I'd write it down in the auction notes.
Bottle heights?
Yeah, like a lot of these older wines they would dehydrate. They would, so they would check bottle
height
heights
of the liquid in the bottle.
That's right, and just overall condition.
Right.
I saw some really cool wines and.
Oh, nice. And what do they call that missing part of wine in the bottles?
No, I don't know if they call it anything.
I heard years ago they called it the angel's share.
Oh yeah, did they? I don't,
but in French.
We all learn. Huh.
Well,
Good. Well, that's the angels.
But that's what I recollect. So, how long did you work down there?
Like for months. It was one of these tempy jobs where they paid me really well.
Tempy jobs. And then what happened next?
So then I was applying to jobs. I mean, this is back in the day. So there wasn't a lot of restaurants in Rhinebeck and the surrounding area. So, this Cripple Creek was back there where Bia actually was Cripple Creek. And I never applied to Le Petit Bistro. I applied to Cripple Creek. And Dan's wife, who was the original owner, one of the original owners.
Of Cripple Creek.
No, of Le Petit Bistro.
Okay.
He bought it from the original French couple, and his wife said, "Why don't you check with neighboring restaurants to see if they have any resumes available?" And so they called me in, and
So you're working at Cripple Creek.
I'm
and-
not. No, I'm applying to jobs.
applying
in
to
the area.
jobs. Okay.
I am working down in White Plains,
Gotcha.
and
the people,
Cripple, yeah, and
the
Le
people
Petit
from the
asked-
bistro.
Yeah, they asked them if you have any resumes that you don't need, and mine was one of them, and they called me in, and
Because they didn't need your resume. They're like, this guy, no.
well, I said,
Whatever.
I was.
He's not Cripple Creek material.
No, well, no, I guess not. And it ended up being their doom, kind of, because But
Yeah.
they sent me.
that's not
They,
just-
when I got to Le Petit, they threw me like a half saddle of veal, which is like this chunk of meat, and they said, here, cut this up. And I
Which
said,
by this point, it sounds like that was one of your specialties.
and I said,
was-
well, how do you want it? You want it
fabricating.
boned out? You want it lamb? You want veal chops?
And they're like, you
want
got
it
the
boned
job.
out? Yeah, they're like, we got somebody here. Which was back in the day, it was hard to get good people because there was no food town. It was like Foster's,
with
Cripple
butchering,
Creek.
good people with butchering skills. And
Yeah, then all around,
cooking
that
skills.
knew what he was doing.
So what year is this that you started at Le Petit Bistro? Back when it really was petite.
Yeah, this was like 98. This was 2 years out of culinary school.
Great. And what?
And then, Brendan was the chef there and part owner, and he had injured his shoulder, so they were looking for somebody to take over the kitchen. I thought I was applying for a sous chef job, and I ended up just taking over. and then it was Dan and I who ran it for, several years.
So that had to be kind of terrifying and very exciting.
Yeah, it was great, and it was a small enough place where it was me, one guy, and a dishwasher doing everything and desserts. It was like, and it was busy.
And
we were busy back then.
How many seats were in that petite?
It was like 55 seats.
No, really? In that
Yeah.
little hole in the wall? It was
Yeah,
like-
we shoved them in. I mean, it was
Yeah.
crazy.
Right.
And, we do 80, 90 a night pretty consistently. It was like a private club.
Right.
And it was a lot of New Yorkers, it was a lot of people that really were food educated, that didn't mind a sardine on the bone,
Right.
that were just, it was blessed, because I was kind of, just cooking my food and, cooking food that I enjoyed,
Right.
and
And were there things that were on the menu when you joined Le Petit Bistro that you just hated? You're like, ugh, with that. Why is that on the menu? I don't like that. Or you just didn't like cooking? You're smiling. You don't have to implicate anything.
Yeah,
you can pass on any questions.
no,
I got
it was
a whole
just really
page of
well,
questions.
it was a lot of convenience over quality. I mean, people loved, and they're going to probably get mad at me about it, but
I'm mad already.
I mean, Jean Paul and Yvonne, he was great. They were great. I mean, they were on the Food Network. The bistro was on the Food Network, like way back in the day,
As
And,
what?
but
As like a place to go?
But there was always an updating, there was always, I was just happy that it was such a great pedigree to come from, and that I kept the menu the same for years out of, just because it's a great menu, it was out of respect of the people that had been dining there for so long.
Right.
A lot of people were like, "Oh, you never changed anything," and I was like, "That was so far from the truth." I mean, we changed a lot of things.
Right.
We got better plates, better wine glasses.
And what dishes were on the menu in 98 and are still on the menu today?
The rack a lamb, the au poivre, the coquille Saint Jacques. I still do the frog legs sometimes.
Right.
We had Dover sole on the bone. That's no longer on there. But a lot of the menu, the French onion soup, the escargot. When COVID hit, it blew everything apart. And at that point we just started adapting, taking some things from the menu, rotating things that were classics, and then just disregarding the fondue. I never liked doing the fondue. Everybody loves the fondue.
Right.
It's a little fried hucky pucks of cheese love. A lot of people ask for those still.
Fondue.
The casino, I mean, those were all great dishes, and they were like bistro classics. But I wanted to introduce a lot of salad. The thing was, you gave away a salad at the old bistro. You'd get your appetizer or whatever. Then you'd order an entree, and you'd get a salad with your entree.
Right.
So there was like this whole host of composed salads and salads that I wanted to do. And it was like, it was kind of trumped by that because you'd get a salad as an appetizer, and then you
Right.
get an intermisto.
Composed salads, is that what you said?
Composed salads.
What is that?
That would be like classic would be like tuna niçoise.
Okay.
Where you have lettuce greens, but you have composition of other elements, the duck confit or the lardon salad with
I gotcha.
with the where you have elements of like a protein and vegetables along with salad and an egg and
Right.
a composition of ingredients, not just like you could take that term and go into like a chef salad and say that is a composed salad, which it is.
Okay.
The
And
Cobb salad is a composed salad where it's like a meal that's a salad. And it's a use of like, you're using up everything in your refrigerator. Little green beans, little sliced tomato,
Right. And
little
what's
tuna fish.
and what is your favorite thing to eat there off the bistro menu?
I mean, I'd have to say the fried oysters
Yeah.
they're delicious. That was kind of an original I did for a fundraiser. I think it was for the hospital, the yearly hospital.
So you had this idea. You're like,
Fundraiser.
hey, what if we fried those things and served them like this with that kind of sauce? And
Yeah, it comes out of necessity. I started doing oysters on the half shell at some point because I love oysters on the half shell. And so I started integrating that into the menu. And so any of the bee oysters, anything that wasn't exactly just beautiful,
right.
was still delicious.
Right.
But it wasn't, if somebody had damaged them on the shucking or if it wasn't quite plump and delicious.
Damage them, like sort of slicing them open.
Slicing them open and,
Right.
then it really, ruins them. And
Ruins
so,
the look of them, but they still
and the
taste
taste. Well, no, I mean, it's like, it's just not the same.
Right.
You've broken the intestine. They're it's just different. It's just not as glamorous. It just doesn't look as beautiful.
Gotcha.
So any of those, I had to devise. I devised a recipe that would use those up, so I didn't compromise my half shells.
Right.
So I did a lot of oysters Rockefeller.
Right.
So I was always on the look for something that would take care of that as a, use that as a byproduct.
Right.
So I just had, it was kind of a takeoff on a California spring roll with the Tobacco mayonnaise.
Uh-huh.
A little bit of simple cucumber salad and shucking them and just serving them right in the oyster shell. We shucked them and
Uh-huh. On like a bed of this like salt, huge grain salt.
yeah, I mean that was to emulate, hold it in place, emulate, the ice,
Right.
kind of give it a glamorous look. And
It's a beautiful dish,
thank you.
and it's incredibly popular. What do you reckon is the most popular dish in your place?
Fried oysters, man.
That's it.
Yeah, we do. We do a lot of half shells. We'll do around 2,200 oysters on the half shell a week in 5 days.
Uh-huh.
And we'll do a lot.
2,200?
Yes.
That's nuts.
Yes.
And
we hand shuck them all.
Let me ask you this:
order.
before the pandemic, which is before Rhinebeck was so very popular. How many did you do?
About the same. We're already maxed out. I mean, we're only open 5 days a week, and every day is like a Saturday. So I mean, we really can't do any more people in the place with the amount of labor force that we
it's
have
hard
right
to
now.
get a reservation.
We try to keep it that way.
That's good. That's good for you.
Good for business.
It is. So when you're inventing dishes, like coming up with the fried oysters and stuff, where does the inspiration come from? You know what? Let me rephrase this. What are the dishes you've invented in the past that you're especially proud of? Or recipes that you got and you changed them this way or
Yeah.
that way and made them yours and made them just fabulous.
I like to I like to cook the classics. It's kind of a Zen approach, kind of like a baker's mentality, where, you really are cooking the same loaf of bread over and over again.
Right.
It's just trying to get the best crust and crumb. So there's a lot of that. I mean, I'm definitely creative, but I mean your strengths as a chef. I think, my utilization of product. That drives the business right there. Really cooking what's in your walk-in.
Right.
A lot of people are like, well, I'll take a dab of this and I'll take a dab of that. But it's really, utilizing what's in your refrigerator and saying, okay,
But
I have this, like they have on the show, where you have a box and you just open the box.
right.
I mean, it's an adaptation of what really life is in a chef's world, you know.
Right.
Where
But you have control over what's in your walk-in, right?
yes,
You're the
for
one
the
who's
most
saying,
part,
"Get
it's
this, get
amazing
that."
how things end up in there. You know, I'll have people that'll just bring me foraged mushrooms, and then like with John, this is our first year working with each other, so it wasn't like a set game plan of like we're gonna
John.
John the farmer down at Son of the Bee, so it was a lot of that.
So
He's just growing an agenda that he devised a year before. So I have no control over that. And he says, I have,
this and
10
that.
pounds of Fresno chili peppers. And I have,
And you're like, ooh, I wonder what I could make with that.
yeah. Yeah. Then you're like, okay, well, we're going to look at that. And
That sounds kind of dreamy.
yeah. And then you're doing, pickled Fresnos, or you're fermenting. We're fermenting peppers right now. We got a ton. So we're fermenting some, I have this like Polish fermenter. And we've been throwing all kinds of things in there.
A fermenter made in Poland.
More made in Poland, yeah. Okay. It's like, making pickles, making sauerkraut.
And how I don't even know how a fermenter works or what it looks like.
Well, it's like a clay jar.
Okay.
And this one's an inset lid. So the lid sits inside of another lid, and then you fill water in there.
Okay.
So there's this ring of water that keeps it sealed. And you get they're nicer. You get a little better, more predictable product. And it's a little easier to take care of, but we're packing green cabbage in there. We're making kimchi in there. We're making sauerkraut.
And
we're making kosher dill pickles.
How does the fermentation happen? Do you do something to spur the fermentation? Some sort of catalyst or
No, just a little bit of salt. You pack it in there, and then you leave it out. And then nature takes its, there's already bacterias and things in there that are
floating in from
floating in there
environment?
that are positive. You got it. That's why you put the water seal in there. So you keep the baddies out and you keep all your good ones inside. And then you're dealing with a live product that's so good for you.
Right.
That's fermenting is, that's definitely been a trend that's been stronger and stronger. And, because it really gives that almost that
kombucha stuff.
Yeah, that fuzzy, that the life, the Vita, the wines,
Yeah.
a lot of the natural wines.
So you say they're so good for you, and I wonder, is there something you eat every day because it's really good for you? It's good for your system.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I eat kimchi every day.
Oh,
I
you
have
do?
my fermented products.
And you make your own kimchi,
I make my own kimchi.
and you have some every day.
Yeah, I'll have that. I have the pickle juice.
And do you
Just
feel,
lots of water too, man. Just
Water's the
hydrate.
best.
Jeez.
But do you feel a difference in your health, or see a difference in your health since you've started ingesting these fermented products every day?
Yeah, I mean, I've always lived like that. Growing up having a farm, I wasn't subjected to a lot of the preservative laden foods. Even though I do occasionally like to enjoy them and boxed items, but I've been living off of no boxes and
Right.
I mean, I'll eat my pizza and stuff like that, but I steer away from a lot of that stuff and
All right. What's your
Whole Foods and meats and
What's your order at McDonald's?
double quarter pounder with cheese, man. Maybe
Wish everybody could see the look I
just.
just got from Joe when I dropped
No, I
off.
hit it. Everybody asks. A lot of people ask me that.
Well,
you can't
it's-
possibly eat at McDonald's.
It's the
And
cliched guilty pleasure.
I mean, the caramel sundae's pretty banging.
Yeah.
The French fries are good.
All right. How often do you go there?
Once a year.
Yeah. I go.
Maybe I'm on a road
I go
trip.
a couple of times more than that. And I really, honestly, I never feel good afterwards.
I don't either.
always feel a little bit like, ugh, why did I do that? But I
Yeah.
still want it. And it's a food for my youth. It's a comfort food. Super salty, delicious.
I agree, man.
The double quarter pounder with
We
cheese.
got that Cincinnati chili, man.
Oh man.
Come on.
Yeah, I was in Cincinnati recently. I was there for 2 nights. I ate at Skyline 3 times because it's so good.
Got to do it. You got to do it when you're there, man.
Cincinnati's chili. All right, what else? Tell me more. We got 4.5 minutes left. Yeah.
Well, I got to fill the time in.
Well, I got questions here. This is the first time ever.
Give me some questions,
I wrote
man.
down
Throw it
questions.
down.
I haven't asked any of them yet, but
Should.
I haven't looked at my list. But I think I sort of covered a lot of this. All right, what about your kids coming to the restaurant and eating something?
We were in there last night.
And do they try new stuff? Do they try stuff and be like, "Fuck, Dad, this is amazing"? Do they sort of
No, that is no.
Kids.
You know, Simon likes the schnitzel with rice and greens.
How
You know,
old's-
Henry's adventure. He's always ordering different things. He
How
loves
old's
the lamb
Simon?
chop. He's 8. He just turned 8 yesterday.
Right. That's great. And he likes the schnitzel.
He likes the schnitzel.
And Henry will eat anything.
Henry's pretty adventurous, and Finley likes to get the steak there. He loves the au bois.
How old's Finley?
Finley's 14.
Okay.
I always think he's 15, but he's 14.
Yeah, I really only have an idea about Henry, but I knew you had other kids. But I don't really know.
They're awesome too,
because they weren't friends with Moss.
No.
Okay, I got more questions. I think I covered them all. Oh, here's one of the notes on my list. Years ago, you mentioned to me that you were listening to the Pandora Comedy Channel. Do you remember this at all?
Yes.
And I was like, they got a comedy channel? I'll check that out. I listen to that thing all the time. I love the Pandora Comedy Channel.
It's great.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, it's really nice. And the kids listen to it, and they come in, they're like, "Oh, you're listening to that shit again?" I'm like, "Shut up and listen," because it's really funny. So thanks for that. Tennis, you playing much tennis?
I'm not playing much tennis anymore, you know. The guys, you know.
Yeah, I built you as a sportsman and a good sport in the little...
And I still am.
Yeah.
I still mountain biking, you know.
You're mountain biking, and you have dirt bikes.
I have
Used
one
to.
dirt bike, yes.
Uh-huh.
It's getting a little dusty.
Getting a little dusty.
Getting a little dusty.
Yeah. And you fix it, you make the repairs on that yourself.
Yes.
Looks like.
Did you check my Instagram?
I glanced through Instagram. You need more posts on Instagram.
I know.
Like 13 posts.
It's just, you know, I try to really put the best things and the coolest things in there, you know. I got a new Land Cruiser coming, so.
A new what?
A new Land Cruiser.
Oh, you got rid of the old one.
I sold my green one. I sold the Defender.
Is this one a left-hand drive?
No, it is not. It's out of Columbia. No, it is a left-hand drive. You got me on that one. Because the last one was a right-hand drive. Yes, this is a left-hand drive.
Which is?
Diesel. 81 Land Cruiser. It's a BJ40, but it's known as the FJ40.
coming up from South America?
It's coming up from Cartagena. I think we should spend our last 2.5 minutes discussing this.
Did you see that movie, The French Connection?
I did see The French Connection.
Remember where they hid all the heroin?
Was it probably in a Land Cruiser?
Well, it was in a car. It was in.
Yeah, I get a lot of those jokes, Norm.
Do you?
Yeah, I always say that.
It's coming from Colombia,
he gets
for
to
crying out loud.
He gets to keep the headrest and the wheels and tires.
Everything else is being taken over by the feds.
Yeah.
All right. When in your kitchen right now, is music playing in the kitchen of Le Petit
Always.
Bistro? And what's the music?
We're listening to a lot of newer hip hop, newer rap music.
You're supposed to say Pandora Comedy Channel.
Oh, Pandora Comedy. Is that what it's supposed to be?
No, I'm
we
kidding.
So we rock
So
it out.
newer hip hop, and who has control of the dial?
We changed that off. Ian O'Connor rolls some pretty good stuff.
Does he?
Yeah, he knows his music.
Love that kid. Well, his dad's an amazing cook and a serious music aficionado. So
Yes,
no
you get it too. And then Kyle, you know, I'll throw. I'm known as the DJ. I DJ a lot of parties when we're having it. And known to throw down the tracks too.
Are you?
Joe knows it. Yeah.
You have a special DJ name?
DJ Joey D.
Abu Dalu.
No, DJ Joey D.
Yeah.
But it's kind of.
Yeah.
I'm not too proud of it.
DJ Joey D. Do you have a logo? Do you need a logo? I'll do a logo for you.
No, we need another hour though. That was fun.
We do need another hour, and it's over. We got like 28 seconds left, so that's just enough time for me to say thank you, Matt, for creating Radio Free Rhinecliff, and for inviting me to have the show, and for Joe Dalu for coming. What a treat! Thanks to Patricia Wind here at the Epicurean for hosting us in the Nook at the Epicurean. And thank anybody who happened to be tuning in for listening through this delightful interview with my guest tonight, Joe Dalu.
Thanks, Norm.
Thank you.